Hello, welcome back to the Biblical Preaching Podcast, and I'm joined by Mike, as usual. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
And we are thinking about preaching teams. So when you've got a church where only one person ever preaches, this probably isn't relevant. But when you've got a church like most churches where there may be others helping, stepping in, or genuinely it's shared between a group of preachers, you've got a preaching team situation. And so we've got 10 thoughts to kind of prod our thinking about preaching in teams.
And I was thinking even just an extra thing, just to encourage people that maybe people are preaching in a church where it is just one person, but let's try to be preachers who look to make a team. Who, maybe that could be another discussion we have in another time. Like, how do you train and encourage other people to do it? But just team ministry is something that we're both super keen on. Theologically, it's a it's a thing for us. But just the practicality as well, and the blessing of being on a team. So preaching team.
That's right. I mean, if you are literally one preacher every week, there's literally no succession plan.
Yeah.
So there's no possibility of others developing in that context, and so it's worth thinking about, how to bring others in. But I suppose what we're talking about is more the situation where you may have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that preach during the calendar year. How do you do a series as a team?
Yeah.
Right. So it could be pastor and an assistant and the youth pastor in some churches. It could be elders and other preachers in other churches. Doesn't matter. We're just thinking about plural preachers preaching in the same series. So here's 10 thoughts. So the first one is be a team in reality and not just in name. It's easy to say it's a team, but actually to be a team, you've got to care for the other people. You've got to want them to succeed. You've got to be encouraging, connecting, supporting, praying. It seems kind of obvious, but I think it's important.
Yeah, just because you've, like you say, just because you've got more than one person preaching, being a team means something. Like it has to mean something. It's more than just having multiple people do the same thing or taking it in turns to do the same thing. It should mean something. There should be a warmth and a support to being part of that team and a preaching team, particularly. If you're sort of the main leader, the main preacher in that team, then I would say it's kind of on you to lead that prayer and support and being with each other.
And also, I think preaching can be quite a lonely experience, and so. You prepare alone, you stand alone, you deliver it, and then afterwards you're sort of potentially struggling with difficult feedback or whatever. It can be quite a struggle. And so to have a handful of other people or one or two other people who are there genuinely wanting you to succeed, like that's healthy, right? I mean, a healthy church, that should be a lot more than one or two other preachers. But preachers understand what preachers go through. And so having 2 or 3 other preachers with you, wanting your message to go well and knowing that you want their message to go well, there's something really healthy there.
Even if only because when you preach, if you're preaching in a kind of with a team like this, you know that when you preach, there's at least X amount of people in the audience, in the congregation, that are immediately on your side. But you'd hope that there'd be more people on your side than just that team, but you know that that's kind of how a team works.
And so connected to that, let's go with thought number 2, which is play a key role in each other's spiritual growth. So it's not just thinking, okay, that there's this message this Sunday and I want Mike to succeed when he preaches it. There's a sense as well in which I want Mike to be more Christ-like 5 years from now, and Mike wants me to be more Christ-like 5 years from now, for our own good and for the good of the church.
Those two things really are really important, because preaching is not just the preacher in that moment, is it? It's a life thing, and we want to be growing ourselves and encouraging each other to grow, both in quality of preaching, of course, but growth in faithfulness. To the message, but also faithfulness to the Lord.
That's right.
And to be able to do that, kind of walk together in some kind of team, it is valuable, but it doesn't just happen.
We're just not designed to be lone rangers.
Yeah.
We're very prone to be lone rangers. I think some of us more than others, but we need each other, and we're in a battle. And so having comrades, brothers, a band of brothers together, it's a powerful image for a reason. People are inspired by that when they watch the sort of the war films or whatever, or sports documentaries. But actually, in church, we're living in a battle. And so to have each other's back, to care for each other's heart is very, very important, very significant. And, can I say it, for men, very easy to miss.
Yeah, definitely. The next pointer is also practical, but maybe in a slightly different way. So the third one is to share your resources. And I guess the opposite is an obvious thing to try to avoid, sort of hoarding the best books just for yourself, so you can be the one. But yeah, just kind of being open with the access that you have to commentaries, to reference tools, but also sort of being able to share ideas.
Yeah, and to have some unity on the resources you're leaning on as well. I remember listening to a series years ago in a different church. Was I even involved? I must have preached a little bit, but the series was on 1 Peter, and I just kind of sensed very quickly each preacher is very much a standalone.
Okay.
And I think they're using different commentaries.
Okay. Because
one's talking about the background in one sense, and then another preacher's coming in and talking about the background in a different sense. And you go, hang on a minute, which is it? And so that's going to be true in all Bible books, that there's different ways of understanding what's going on. And so you want to be, presenting a unified front. You want to come across with a kind of shared sense of this is what we think as a church, rather than, one person holding a strong view about the kind of the alien status of the people because they are dispersed among nations generically. And then the next week someone's coming in and saying, no, these are a very specific group of people that are dispersed among these 5 specific locations in Turkey. And then the next week, do you know what I mean? It's like, well, hang on, which is it? And so coordinate. And part of that is to share resources and say, hey, look, I've read the intro to Karen Job's commentary on 1 Peter, and it's absolutely superb. Share it with the group and kind of have a shared sense of, okay, this is the way we're preaching this book, rather than I'm reading a commentary I find super helpful and you're reading one you find super helpful but different, and someone else is looking at Matthew Henry, and then there isn't a cohesion to the series. So share your resources. That's the third thought. Yeah.
The fourth one is to preview and review the messages together, and it's so helpful if you're able to do this within your preaching team. Is something that we've done in our church here really since the beginning, if not before. Just meeting together and previewing and reviewing together. So in terms of, what are you thinking when we talk together, previewing a message? So kind of before the Sunday, it could be a few days before the Sunday, it could be a week or two, but just what's in your mind thinking that?
I think there's the general thought of like, how's this message looking? And sometimes someone can be preparing a message and just have a blind spot, just be very, going down a pathway, and just to have someone else look at it and say, hey, have you thought about this? Oh,
yeah.
Duh. Yeah. I totally.
Especially if they feel stuck.
Yes.
Especially if it's a few days and they're just like, I can't, I'm nowhere.
Yeah.
Having someone to say, have you thought of this?
And sometimes just actually expressing your plan, the other person doesn't even need to say anything. Oh, hang on a minute, I've just had a thought. Yeah. It's like, well, yes. Why didn't I have that thought when I was praying about it in my office earlier, or my study? And even when I tried to preach it earlier, I was still stuck. But then you walk into the room and I say, I'm going to do this. Oh, wait, I've got a thought.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even great insight from the other person. But then I think, so there's a sort of the generic benefit of conversation and somebody making a suggestion, or have you thought about this? But there's also specifics. So I know Mike's weaknesses, and I know my strengths, and I know my weaknesses, and Mike's strengths, and Andy and others on the team similarly. So typically in our church, often Andy and I will be talking about messages before we preach them, and his input to me tends to be in an area of my weakness, and my input to him tends to be in an area of his weakness, and probably same with you.
Yeah.
And so I think that can be really helpful to, if let me not give a specific relating to any of us, but let's say I have a tendency to be really academic in my vocabulary, and I just come across like I'm still kind of doing a seminary class or something. For Mike to come in and say, hey, I'm not sure that you need to use the word whatever as your second point, and your big idea, does it need to be in Latin? Like that's a joke, obviously, but Mike kind of giving that input can help me to go, oh yeah, you're right, I forgot.
Yeah.
Let me put that back into English. And so, yeah, kind of giving each other preview, anticipation of a message. It can actually be quite targeted if you trust each other.
Yeah. And again, that comes in almost what we've been saying already. Just this kind of teamwork comes over time. It's not just kind of a one-off thing. Over time of, like you say, of those previewing and discussing. But even in terms of kind of having a specific time to review messages is really helpful too. I found that helpful sometimes if in the preview stage I've said I really want to work on this particular aspect of my preaching. I'm gonna try and do this week. When we kind of come to discuss it and review it, there's something sort of concrete to say, okay, you said you were going to try it. How did it go?
Yeah.
Or, did you do it? I didn't notice you, or, in whatever the feedback and the review is, but just having that time to review will make me better, or make us better next time.
And also, it'll make us better, but it also can help the series as well.
Yeah.
So recently, I guess it was two of us that were doing a short series, and the other person said, I was a bit disappointed with my message. I felt like I hadn't said this, or this wasn't clear enough. And I said, okay, well, we can make that clear in next time as we review where we've been already. Right. We can sort of reinforce. Last week we heard this, but the way we describe it can reinforce what that preacher felt disappointed they hadn't quite said.
Yeah.
Whether or not he had, or is not the point. The point is he felt disappointed, but hopefully the subsequent week can kind of fix slightly what happened the week before. Let's go on to the next one. So number 5, plan series together. Okay, so instead of saying, right, we've got a series where we're going to work our way through the book of Philippians, and we're going to have 3 different people preaching. You do this bit, you do this bit, you do this bit. Go, and everyone's separate. Having the conversation together at some level, it's not always possible, but at some level, what are we trying to achieve? Why are we choosing this book? What are we going to emphasize? What image should we use on the kind of advertising logo? That sort of thing. There's potential to kind of set up a shared sense of ownership of the series, because what you don't want to do is have 1 or 2 people who really get what the series is, and then a third person who's guessing what they're supposed to be trying to do when they come in at week 6. So however that happens, have the planning, the conversation, not just about individual messages, but the series as a whole.
That's hard to do if you're used to being the sole preacher of a series. Having a sort of a one theme flow when you're the only one preaching is really easy, because you're the only one doing it. And so sometimes it's kind of, we think, well, it's just easier if I do the whole series, because I'll kind of get the flow. So like this stuff, we know it can be hard. Like it can be harder to being in a team than individuals, but it's just so I think much more valuable doing this stuff in a team, and this will make it better preaching in a team by planning it together, because then everyone knows the direction, everyone knows the flow, everyone knows the theme. People are building on each other's messages from last week, and then launching. It's launching into next week something, and being on the same page is is really, really valuable for a series.
Right. Number 6, play people in their best position. Right. So sports analogy.
Yes.
Right. If you're, I don't know where our audience is for this, but it's true with any sport. You don't want to play someone out of position unnecessarily. And if you get the right people in the right positions, the whole team is stronger for it. It's kind of obvious, right? So what does that mean in terms of preaching a series? Well, you've got some messages that may need to cover big picture or historical background, some messages that may be dealing with quite a complex or controversial section of a book. What else? You may have a kind of a launching of a series, setting the sort of the pace and the feel for the whole thing. You could have a message that's concluding a series that isn't just landing a message, but you're trying to land a series. There's a whole load of different dynamics at work in that. And I think it's fair to say that some people are better than others. Guest special occasion. Some people are ideal for a special occasion type of message. Perhaps okay at normal messages. So yeah.
I mean, even perhaps if there's like a genre change within a series, some people are perhaps better at preaching poetry.
Yeah.
And some people are better at preaching narrative or epistles or something. And so just being aware of that. It's not to say, okay, I'm better at preaching poetry, so I'm only ever going to preach,
right.
That's something else entirely. But just within a series, it's knowing actually that, it's kind of knowing where to put people in the series is really key.
And also I think there's going to be, and with all these things, I think you need to have some flexibility, and it might be like, well, actually Mike would be the ideal one for that message, but he's not available, so I'll do it. That's reality.
Yeah.
But also I think some preachers will be more excited about some messages. There's nothing wrong with going with that.
Yeah.
If someone's particularly passionate about a certain subject or a certain part of a book or whatever, I know when I'm anticipating a series, my mind is already thinking, oh, I hope I really get that one. And sometimes it's a case of, I really want that one, but there's a preacher that we want to preach who's got far less experience, and that's an easier one. Let's give that to him. I'll take the list of names, or I'll take the, the more complex one.
Yeah.
But I think, in general, if you've got a team of 3 or 4 people and one person is kind of chomping at the bit to do chapter 12, unless they're so excited they can't communicate, which can happen, why not? Because the energy they'll then put into preparing and into delivery is going to be greater than someone who's kind of like, well, yeah, it's God's word and it's useful and I'm glad to preach it, willing to serve. But I'm also conscious that this person wishes they were doing it. It can kind of become a bit harder. So, generally play people in their best position as much as you can and be flexible and support each other. And if you need to put the gloves on and go in goal, do it.
That's a very niche reference. So that's 6 we've done so far, 6 pointers. So we're heading to number 7, which is, I guess, another sort of sport-related one, is don't play every player every game.
In every series.
In every series, yeah.
You're not going to have every preacher, every sermon. That'd be a chaos, wouldn't it?
Man alive, yeah. I have actually I have preached in one message where there were 2 of us preaching. So we kind of did like a first half, second half.
That's worth a whole episode.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know how well it worked. But anyway, it was a fun experience preparing with someone else. Anyway, that's not the point. So this 7th point is, I think, thinking, like, if there's a 6-week series and you've got 6 preachers in your preaching team, you don't have to have everyone just do one. I mean, you might want to, but it's not just, you don't have to divide every series equally between your preachers. Partly because of what we said before, people have different strengths and different parts of things, but you don't have to have everyone preach equally during the year.
That's right. Or if you think about, let's say you have 6 preachers, hypothetically, and you're doing a 6-week series, and you say, oh, we've got 6 in our team, that's 1 each. Yeah. That's likely to be a bit bitty.
Yeah.
You know, it would probably be a better series if 2 or 3 preach it, and then the other 3 can kind of know what's coming next. They can be working ahead, you know, and so it's not that you have separate teams that always do separate series, but sometimes, you know, I think we're so anxious to involve everyone that we try to involve them now, when actually it'd be better for you to wait, put effort in, because in 2 months' time, it'd be really helpful if you preach this one.
Yeah, and it's likely that in a group that there'll be people that need longer to prepare,
Yeah.
because they're not
Because of work
in
or
full-time
whatever.
ministries. So giving people 2 or 3 months for something like, for me that's too long, but for some people actually 2 or 3 months, that's what they need, because they you know, they're sort of grabbing an hour or a couple of hours in an evening, a couple, you know, so actually saying, well, you're not in this series, but the next series is this, and this is what you're on, and you've got to, like, that's a real blessing.
Kind of have ideal world, have a team, but then pick a specific team with it from within that for a series. Number 8, this is kind of a fun one. A preaching team is not just a collection of preachers. No, I know that
Sounds very profound.
That sounds so profound. You're probably pausing as we speak to go away and think about that for a couple of hours. But let me tell you what I actually mean by what I wrote down there. A preaching team is not just a collection of preachers. Okay, so in one sense it is. I get that. But there are other people that can also be involved in the preaching process that actually may not be preachers. So an obvious example is visual presentation. You know, it may be that you spend 2 hours working on the kind of PowerPoint stuff for your message, and that's just reality. But some people are blessed with others that are able to do in 10 minutes something better than you took 2 hours over. Why not involve them, you know? Or there may be people that are helpful with content generation, with illustration, with research. In some way, never really done this, but in some way to sort of make them feel involved, like they're participants in your preaching, is not a bad thing at all. And so, yes, your team of preachers is a team of preachers, but who are the support roles? You know, if we were going to stick with a sport analogy, it's kind of like, who's the physio, who's the, you know, the kit manager or whatever, these other people that are always in the background and care just as much about this succeeding as the players on the pitch. It's that kind of idea. And so I suppose that's probably a bigger church thing to wrestle with. If, you know, if you're a church of 30 people, it's probably all on you. But even there, I think you can look around. It may be that, yeah, I've got to slave away on the visuals because no one can help with that. But this person over here has really got a keen insight when it comes to illustrative material. Great. Lean on that, and then pray that one day someone can take the visuals off your hands so that you can prepare better and the people can enjoy what they see more than when you're doing it. So, yeah, think about the team not just as the actual preachers, but also as the support roles that can help the preaching to be all that it can be.
The 9th pointer, I think, is massive. So the 9th one is beware of competition. And in any context where there are human teams involved, competition can be quite close behind. So, yeah, maybe it's sort of obvious to say, but the competitiveness can just kill health, kill, you know, gospel health, gospel team. Like a group of people that are competitively preaching is just death for the team, for the church, for the individuals. It just kills everything it touches.
So this wouldn't be the moment to start like having a fight in the middle of our podcast, would it?
Yeah.
Quite awkward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just like wanting to be on the preaching team, to have a name, because I'm on the preaching to want a name, or even sort of within. I guess that made kind of a church-wide thing, but just even within the group of preachers, like, well, they've preached more than me. I wanted that one. Haha, my illustration worked and theirs fell really flat. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Just
ugly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's too easy to think of examples because probably we've all thought of them, but yeah, just the ugliness is that. So are there things that you, Peter, sort of have done or can think of, just in terms of how to try to go about avoiding competition? I mean, a lot of it is we need the Lord, but kind of what things are you sort of trying to, how are you trying to overcome the potential?
I think in some ways a lot of what we've said already, it kind of comes into that. I think there's probably some key relationships in a church. There's always key relationships. And so in our situation, we've got a couple of elders that preach and then several others who aren't elders. The relationship between the couple of elders is critical. If that was competitive, it would spill over and affect everybody else. But I think because people sense we've got each other's back, and we are, we recognize our strengths, we recognize our weaknesses, we don't undermine each other because of weaknesses, we try to support each other. That then spills over into other people that preach, into others in the church. And so I think, yeah, that's probably the key, is the relationships at the core of a team. And it could be, you know, you've got 4 preachers and then 2 that are very once in a while preachers. If there's tension between any of the 4, do you see what I mean? It's making sure that isn't there, and that it's dealt with, and that it doesn't fester and become a thing. Otherwise, it really does steal the life out of a church.
Yeah, because either if it's not there, that's a blessing, but if it is there, deal with it.
Absolutely.
It's
don't
not
just expect it to go away.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. Don't just expect it not to exist. But also, if it kind of is there, then between the people, between you and the person, or kind of as a team, as a leadership team, kind of get on and deal with it.
Yeah. If you bear with, bearing with is a good approach for a lot of things. But I think when there's a red flag within a ministry team or within a leadership team, if there are multiple red flags and you keep bearing with, you're just biding your time until something explodes. Yeah. And that really hurts. And so much better to have the difficult conversation sooner and create a healthy environment. So yeah, important stuff. Beware of competition. Number 10, last one. I can think of more even as we're talking, but let's say that this is the last one. Mentor preachers. So let's say you've got 3, 4, 5 people on a preaching team. Some of them preach very regularly. Some of them preach a handful of times a year. There's probably 1 or 2 or 3 others in the church that maybe haven't preached yet, but would be fascinated and definitely interested to come along and be part of the conversation. Not necessarily needing to know that at some point they're going to preach, but just, you know, hey, would you be interested in coming, being part of this conversation? Not saying that you're going to preach yet, but there's plenty you can learn. I think there's often younger guys that would go, yes, I would love to hear what you guys say to each other. And before you know it, they'd be contributing, you'd be benefiting from them. And it may be that you then say, well, hey, do you want to do this thing in the youth group? Or do you want to do this thing? Or there's this other church that's looking for a preacher. Would you be willing to preach? And you can grow preachers, and before you know it, they'll be part of the team, and you'll think, why was there ever a hesitation? And so mentoring, developing, growing the, not necessarily young as in age, but younger as in ministry experience people into preaching can be such a blessing. Yeah,
100%. I mean, that's how I started. It was in prayer meetings, sort of an early service on a Sunday, preaching out, in sort of different Welsh Valley churches. So giving or making venues for people to preach will bless the people, but it will bless the person that is kind of learning and training and working out if this can be part of their ministry. So yeah, it's kind of the way we started. Just be thinking of people to put into your preaching team.
All right. Well, that's 10 thoughts. I think we can wrap it there. Let's just go to a Bible thought just to finish. Okay, so 1 Corinthians chapter 3, probably quite familiar, and probably haven't thought about this in terms of preaching teams before, but feel free to chip in as well, Mike, here. But where Paul says, "For when one says, 'I follow Paul,' and another, 'I follow Apollos,' are you not being merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth." And that's the thought, isn't it? I preached this section, Mike preached that section, but God gave the growth.
Yeah, and there's no competitiveness between them. It's we're all on the same team, but the beauty, glory, incredibleness is that God's on the team too. Well, we're on his team, and so he's the one. Preaching is serious. Is not just down to how good your preaching team is, but it's God is the one that grows the preachers, the people. He's the one that drives everything, and yeah. So I think that's important to know, to have in mind. When we're thinking about preaching in general, but thinking about preaching teams, that multiple people are involved, should be involved, but God's the one over everything.
Amen. What a place to end. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be with you again soon on the Biblical Preaching Podcast. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate every positive review, like, share, and comment. And thank you for praying for us. We hope you will join us again next time on the Biblical Preaching Podcast.